Chief Minister.
Madam Speaker, I rise to deliver the Ministerial Report on Law and Order notified on the 28th of July 2025. I move that the report be noted. Madam Speaker, in August last year, the CLP was elected on a very clear platform to reduce crime, rebuild the economy and restore our unique and beautiful territory lifestyle. Our government has been very clear. Reducing crime is our #1 priority. In the past 11 months, we have been delivering on our commitments to Territorians to give police better powers, to strengthen the law, to put the rights of victims first and to hold offenders accountable. Madam Speaker, at the weekend we saw yet again another manifestation of years of the former Labor government's soft offender-first policies and priorities. It is not normal nor acceptable for a 15-year-old to allegedly stab another child. We do not apologise for replacing Labor's broken system and putting victim and community safety first. This week we'll be ushering in more necessary changes to support our police and community safety. And Madam Speaker, I have no doubt that the usual offender apologists will criticise our efforts, but can they really look Territorians in the eye that say that kids witnessing senseless violence at a family show is okay? It's simply madness to suggest that a government should go softer on offenders who willingly and callously break the law. Before I recap, Madam Speaker, on the reform that we've already undertaken in the last 11 months, reform that was urgently needed to start to correct 2 decades of Labor's neglect and decay, I want to first start with outlining what the next tranche of law and order reform looks like for the CLP government. On the 18th of June, I announced a major change in the police organisational structure and our antisocial behaviour response with the introduction of police public safety officers. This is a historic move by our government. For the first time, our different auxiliary, public housing and transit safety officer roles will be consolidated into one highly operational unit under Northern Territory Police. Transit safety and public housing safety officer roles will be grandfathered, and those officers and functions will transit to police public safety officers with specialised police training and powers focused on addressing antisocial behaviour in public housing, on buses, at shopping centres, bottle shops, events and other public spaces. The newly sworn police public safety officers will wear police uniforms and operate under police command. Key features of this new piece of reform includes an increase in highly visible police patrols in public spaces, quicker response times with the new police public safety officers patched directly into police comms rather than having our transit and our public housing safety officers having to call 000. They will have access to police systems to feed in critical information and intelligence such as whether or not the person they're dealing with has a domestic violence order or an outstanding warrant. This move brings us in line with other jurisdictions like South Australia and Victoria who've had police safety officers in public places like their train stations for many years and seen a reduction in crime at these public locations. In October, we will make the necessary legislative changes to create the new police public safety officer roles. A structured change management process will support our affected staff and guide the transition. The first intake of our police public safety officers is expected to begin training in December this year, with officers operational in early 2026. And Madam Speaker, while our new police public safety officer model will see a boost to the number of police on our streets, we will continue to ramp up constable recruitment and training of police. Since coming to government, Madam Speaker, I'm very proud to say that more than 135 police constables have graduated as members of the Northern Territory Police Force. I was proud to attend the graduation most recently of Squad 158, which saw 44 recruits graduate in that intake. This included 17 Aboriginal community police officers who transitioned to constable, and it was excellent to see. This week, we will also see significant step forwards to address youth crime with our amendments to the Youth Justice Act and Youth Justice Regulations, which will be urgently passed through the Parliament this week. These changes deliver on a raft of election commitments as part of our plan to reduce crime, and what those look like, Madam Speaker. They include removing the principle that imprisonment is a last resort, allowing for more direct consequences for serious offences and greater discretion for our police. This is about giving our police and our courts more opportunity to make the decisions they need to, rather than forcing their hand. This is about prioritising victims' rights in sentencing youth offenders, ensuring that the impact on victims will now have to be considered by the courts, reinforcing the fact that we are a victim and community safety-focused government, not an offender-focused government like Labor was. The impact on the victim matters. Youth offenders' criminal history will now be able to be considered by the court if that young person becomes an adult and continues to break the law. The court will be able to look back at their history as a youth offender and consider that in their deliberations. Further changes to the youth judges regulations will put a stop to Labor's catch and release system. The days of our police being used as a taxi service for youth offenders and dropping them home after they're offending to a quote-unquote responsible adult is over. Under Labor's offender-focused system, youth offenders avoided accountability or consequences and often reoffended days, even hours after being dropped home by police, continuing to put our community at risk. To stop this nonsense, what we're doing is expanding the list of prescribed offences, which will allow our police to proceed straight to charge if they deem that the most appropriate course of action to keep the community safe. Again, this is about empowering our police, and they will be able to move straight to charge if necessary, rather than being forced to go through a diversion process. It gives our police broader discretion to divert where it is appropriate and charge where it is required. There will be no more free taxi rides home by our police. Serious harm offending, hit and runs, driving stolen vehicles, assaulting frontline workers and break-ins will now have that position of being able to proceed to charge if the police or courts deem it necessary. Madam Speaker, we've also responded because we know that Territorians are very concerned about personal safety and their own self-defence. We've listened to the many Territorians who've said they want more choice when it comes to being able to protect and defend themselves. From 1 September, we'll be launching our 12-month trial of OC spray. Under the trial, approved members of the public can carry OC spray for self-defence under strict legal conditions. A similar trial has been undertaken in Western Australia, and it's provided really useful insights into how a controlled model of personal use of OC spray can work effectively in a community. Northern Territory Police have been leading the consultation on the trial with key stakeholders, including industry bodies, licensees and the broader community. We propose that the OC spray will only be available through licensed firearms dealers. Eligibility requirements, purchasing processes and access arrangements are all under consideration, ready for the rollout. Madam Speaker, this trial will be done properly, and after 12 months we'll review what took place and see what the next steps are. This is all about giving Territorians more choice and peace of mind when it comes to taking control over their own safety. And Madam Speaker, we have further plans for legislative changes which aim to tackle the issues at the heart of reducing crime here in the Northern Territory. We have a second tranche of Youth Justice Act changes that we've been working on to enhance the diversion process and options and provide community service choices for youth boot camps. Changes to the Traffic Act will streamline the processes for more common offences and greater penalties, for example, for those who drive off on random breath testing stations. There is much work that is being done and will be brought to the chamber into the future. I now seek to update the House, Madam Speaker, on what we have done already. We are unapologetic about using the law when it comes to serious repeat offenders. Since last year's election, more than 600 criminals have been taken off the street, sending a very clear message under a CLP government that we put the rights of the community to be safe and the rights of victims before the rights of offenders. In April this year, we recalled Parliament to deliver the strongest bail laws in the country. This is on top of the work we did urgently when we first came to government in October last year, where Declan's Law, mandatory sentencing for assaults on frontline workers, increased wanding powers for police, ram raid and post and boast legislation was passed. Our strong bail legislation requires judges for the first time to put the safety of the community first by being satisfied that an alleged offender will not pose a risk to the community if granted bail. This is a very, very significant step forward, Madam Speaker. This principle must be addressed and considered before any other presumption for or against bail can be considered, and the new laws apply to youth and adult offenders. These changes were brought forward in response to the tragic death of nightclub shop owner Linford Fyke, allegedly by a serious offender out on bail at the time. An event that shocked and united our community, and a death that should never have happened. Our laws, Madam Speaker, are sending a strong message. If you are a risk to the community, then you don't deserve to be a part of it. Since passing a range of new laws, we are seeing the safety of victims and the community being put first, and it's the first time in a long time. Madam Speaker, it's important to note that we are also simultaneously acting on areas that aim to address reoffending and stopping offending from happening in the first place. Corrections have been working overtime, and they've opened and operating the Tennant Creek Bail Supportive Facility in partnership with the Padda Aboriginal Corporation. This has led to 8 young people from the Barkly region being accommodated at that bail facility for a total of 566 nights. This program allows young offenders to remain connected to family, country and community rehabilitation programs that continue to support them to reintegrate into the community. Previously, young offenders in the Barkly region were transported all the way to Alice Springs for bail accommodation or detention or remand, whatever was required. It's certainly the early days of this facility, but one young person on a sentenced order program is attending the local high school and engaging with service providers to identify a trade pathway. And a previous client under the 3-month order at the facility is actually now an employee as a youth mentor, and we had the chance to meet him when we were in Tennant Creek for the show just a couple of weeks ago. It was fantastic to see him out with the other kids. Madam Speaker, in addition to strengthening bail laws, we've also boosted police powers in a range of other ways. This year, we passed stronger laws that give police the power to enter private premises for domestic violence order compliance checks, including conducting alcohol and drug testing of individuals subject to DVOs, and to arrest individuals who've breached parole or had their parole revoked. These changes are about proactive policing and helping police to stop crime before it occurs. In May, we delivered the biggest law and order budget in the Territory's history. Our $1.34 billion on police, corrections and Attorney Generals, which was $112 million more than the last Labor budget. It includes a record $608 million for police. Some of those highlights are $95 million to continue the police funding package, $10.2 million for the remote policing implementation plan, $4.7 million for the Air Wing Police aircraft replacement of leasing, $1.3 million for increased CCTV monitoring, $1 million per annum for the police banned drinker order support team, and a further $186 million over 4 years has also been provided for police major works infrastructure, including $143.5 million for the remote police infrastructure and housing upgrade program, and a $35.7 million to construct a new multi-purpose complex out in Maningrida. $6.6 million as well is going into our Joint Emergency Services Communication Centre. Madam Speaker, this investment is in addition to what we are spending to address the root causes of crime. This is about prevention, early intervention and focusing on the factors that we as a government can control or influence. Things like education, better housing and meaningful opportunities for our people. We can't reduce crime by only responding to it after it happens. We must prevent it from happening in the first place. We must break the cycle and give our younger generation a chance at a life beyond crime. Some of the new measures we've introduced include our circuit breaker program, which is now operating in Darwin, Alice Springs and Katherine, which offers intensive case management support to youth at risk. Our school attendance officers, which we now have 21 of across the Territory, are holding parents accountable, ensuring no child is deprived of an education. We've provided almost $2 million for qualified school-based counsellors to provide guidance and support to children while they're at school, allocated $36 million a year in ongoing funding for the prevention of domestic, family and sexual violence, and $18 million over 5 years to continue men's behavioural change programs right across the Territory. We're investing in new homes and major repairs and maintenance under the jointly funded $4 billion remote housing agreement to tackle overcrowding and poor housing conditions. And Madam Speaker, we're nowhere near finished. We are just getting started. Coming soon, we're also making changes to school-based police officer program to enhance it, and major reforms around public housing to address antisocial behaviour and crime in public housing. And problem drinking is also a key area of reform that will help address the root causes of crime. And we all know that alcohol-related harm is rife across the Territory, but we're committed to tackling this problem in a measured way. Apart from our review into the banned drinker register, we're also exploring the options for alcohol mandatory treatment, which we will be working on into the future to make sure that people who are chronically affected alcoholics get the support they need, whether they want it or not. We'll give full consideration to all of the options to make sure that we are getting people well and healthy. Our reforms continue to extend to justice and the correction system, all of which were truly broken by the Labor government. This year, we've already had to introduce measures to help the record numbers we're seeing through the courts, with increases to local judges, increases to prosecutors, support for legal aid. We've created the Targeted Intervention Group Early Resolution Task Force to go through that backlog of court cases we inherited under Labor, and 200 cases have already been resolved and finalised, and we continue that very important work. Our Corrections Master Plan is providing more prison beds to meet demand after years of Labor neglect. And we are fixing that mess because our justice system is too important to ignore. The work corrections have done has included put on an additional 202 new correctional officers in the last financial year, which is the single largest workforce expansion in the corrections history of the Northern Territory. We've got experienced South Australian correctional officers to help boost capacity in Alice Springs. We're rolling out G4S staff for court custody and prisoner transport to free up our important corrections officers to be behind the wire. And we've added 600 beds to help ease capacity. For youth diversion, as part of our reform, we'll be making sure that youth diversion is mandatory and that young people who break the law no longer have an option to decide whether they participate or not. Our new youth diversion program will has begun on 1st of July and provides recurrent funding to 17 organisations to a total of $4.2 million annually, an increase of $2.4 million, Madam Speaker. The program provides rapid case management, intervention and mandatory programs that focus on consequences, accountability, repatriation and service to the community, skills development for life to reduce reoffending and support educational pathways, skills development for reintegration and addressing criminogenic needs and the drivers of crime, and victim recognition to ensure young people understand how the victims feel and what impacts their choices have on other people. We will monitor those programs closely, Madam Speaker, to track their progress and effectiveness. We're also delivering our boot camp in the Barkly region, as I mentioned earlier, with Tennant Creek Mob Aboriginal Corporation, and they're undertaking projects like country cultural camp activities, community service like cleaning up the Tennant Creek speedways, volunteering at the aged care home and supporting cleaner council areas. Madam Speaker, this is all on top of the immediate reducing crime package laws that we passed in October, as I mentioned earlier, and those laws are working. We've seen 20 ram raid charges, 16 post and boats charges, and 141 edged weapons seized throughout the last 11 months through our increased wanding operations. And from January to February this year, there were a total of 191 charges laid for assault on police and emergency workers. Madam Speaker, there is much commentary from those opposite about our law and order changes so far. And the mistruths and the fears being spread by the opposition or the Labor Greens alliance, whatever you want to call it, the activists and the detractors, that's a matter for them. But we know we have a job to do. And Madam Speaker, we were elected by Territorians to govern for Territorians, to deliver what Territorians want and need for the future. And what they want is to be safe. What Territorians want is for their government to act, for their laws to mean something and for their community to be safe. Madam Speaker, they want to know that if you break the law in the Northern Territory, you will be held accountable and there will be a consequence. And this is not about anything other than community safety. If you commit a crime, you will be held accountable. We know we're moving in the right direction, Madam Speaker, and the crime statistics are starting to show that data, but there is much more work to do. And when you compare January to May under us compared to January to May under Labor, the difference is stark. But, Madam Speaker, we will continue to listen and act on behalf of our community, and we will not back down.